There is a place at the southern edge of South America that seems to run out before the world does, where winds can become strong enough to overturn a loaded truck, where glaciers carve icebergs the size of apartment buildings into lakes colored like frosted glass. Where entire valleys can go months without a truly still day. And yet people keep choosing to live here, not for a season, not as an experiment, but across generations. This is Patagonia. And before we go on, tell me where in the world you're watching from. I'd love to know how far this story travels. Patagonia is roughly the size of Egypt, and yet it holds a population smaller than a single mid-sized American city, scattered across mountains, steppe, and coastline. For every person who calls this region home, there are stretches of land where no person has ever permanently lived at all. Valleys with no fence lines, coastlines with no dock, plateaus with no name beyond what a single estancia owner once scrawled on a map generations ago. There are no chain stores here, no traffic lights for hundreds of kilometers in either direction, no cell signal in long unbroken stretches between one outpost and the next. What there is instead is distance, pure, unmediated distance, the kind that reorganizes how a person thinks about a quick errand or a short drive. At the heart of the Argentine side sits El Chalden, a town that did not evolve slowly like most settlements do. It was built almost overnight in 1985, hastily founded by the Argentine government to plant a flag, quite literally, in a border dispute with Chile over this exact stretch of land. A town founded not by trade routes or fertile soil, but by geopolitics and a mountain range too dramatic to concede. Today it calls itself the trekking capital of Argentina, and it earns the title honestly. Nearly every street in town points, eventually, toward a jagged wall of granite on the horizon. Governance out here carries its own oddities. Much of Patagonia remains genuinely contested or ambiguously marked between Argentina and Chile, with a handful of borders finalized only within living memory, and a scattering of glaciers and channels still debated by surveyors more than by anyone who actually lives near them. Land ownership sprawls across vast private estancias, some larger than small European nations, held by families and in recent decades by foreign conservationists who function as de facto governors of enormous empty tracts of land. And then there is the landscape itself, arriving without warning. A wall of granite spires clawing straight up out of flat grassland with no foothills to soften the transition. Glaciers visible from the highway. A sky that seems to sit closer to the earth than it does anywhere else, pressing down over steppe that runs flat and gold to a horizon with nothing. Not a tree, not a rooftop, not a fence post to interrupt it. Distances here are measured less in kilometers than in hours, and locals plan accordingly. Walk the length of El Chaln, and you could cross it in 15 minutes, end to end. It is not a town built for driving. It is built for looking up. Nearly every structure here is low, wood-clad, and unpretentious, painted in muted greens and browns chosen less for style than for survival. Colours that don't peel in 100-kilometre-an-hour gusts, materials that can be replaced from the local hardware store rather than shipped in from a city 11 hours away. Roofs pitched steeply, not for snow load alone, but to give the wind nothing flat to grip and tear at. What's absent tells you almost as much as what's present. There are no traffic lights, because there is no traffic. There is no real crime to speak of. In the way a city dweller understands crime, doors here are left unlocked out of simple redundancy rather than naivety. There are no chain hotels, no franchised cafes, nothing that could exist identically in any other town on Earth. Every business in El Chaln is, by necessity, someone's actual life's work. The people who end up here are, almost without exception, self-selected. Nobody drifts into El Chaln by accident. The nearest airport with regular service sits hours away, and the last stretch of road makes clear that arrival here is a decision, not a detour. Climbers come for the granite. Guides come for the climbers. A smaller, quieter group comes simply because they tried city life once, found it airless, and never looked back. What binds them isn't a shared background, it's a shared tolerance for isolation, for weather that refuses to cooperate with plans, and for a kind of quiet most newcomers mistake, at first, for loneliness. The first thing most visitors notice isn't a person, it's a guanaco, standing motionless on a ridgeline, watching a passing car with the same wary patience its ancestors have used on this steppe for thousands of years. There are, by most estimates, several guanacos here for every human resident of the surrounding region. Herds moving across private and protected land alike in numbers that dwarf any nearby town's population. Where there are guanacos, there are pumas, and Patagonia holds one of the densest wild puma populations left on the continent, a fact the region has leaned into rather than hidden. Ranchers who once shot pumas on site now sometimes host trackers and photographers instead, a shift in local custom driven as much by economics as by conservation. Torres del Paine, just across the border in Chile, has become one of the only places on Earth where a person can realistically expect to watch a wild puma hunt in daylight. And the region's relationship to the animal has transformed accordingly. Fewer traps, more informal spotting networks, ranch hands radioing sightings to guides the way fishermen once radioed weather. Overhead, Andean condors ride thermals along the cliff faces with a wingspan wider than most doorframes, barely moving a feather for minutes at a time. Along the coasts, Magellanic penguins waddle ashore each spring in colonies numbering in the hundreds of thousands, while southern right whales, once hunted nearly to disappearance in these very waters, now surface in numbers that draw researchers from around the world to the same bays their ancestors once fled. Elephant seals haul out on the beaches in heaps, indifferent to onlookers. And further inland, tiny Patagonian foxes trot along fence lines at dusk, unbothered by the trucks rumbling past. Few regions on Earth pack this much visible, close-range wildlife into landscapes this austere. Sheep ranching, once the region's economic backbone, still shapes how residents read the land alongside the wildlife it borders. A good grazing year and a good guanaco year are often discussed in the same breath, since the two compete for the same sparse grass. Further south, along the Beagle Channel, sea lions bark from rock outcrops just meters from town docks, close enough that fishermen mending nets barely glance up at the noise anymore. Ask anyone who has lived in Patagonia for more than a season what defines daily life here, and the answer rarely mentions cold, or distance, or isolation first. It mentions the wind. Not wind as most of the world understands it, a gust, a breeze, something that passes, but a near constant physical presence, capable of holding a leaning body upright, of stripping paint from fences, of turning a simple walk to the corner store into something that requires bracing your shoulder and choosing your route by which buildings will shield you longest. Gusts here have been recorded well above hurricane strength, arriving with little warning on days that began calm. The hardship of it is real, and residents rarely pretend otherwise. Ropes are strung between house and outbuilding in the most exposed settlements, not as quaint tradition, but so a person can find their way back in a whiteout of dust and gravel. Trees, where they grow at all on the open steppe, grow bent permanently sideways, shaped by decades of wind blowing from the same relentless direction. A living compass rose planted across the landscape. Plans here are made loosely, always with a silent asterisk, weather permitting. Flights are delayed for days. Trekking routes are abandoned mid-climb. A wedding, a barbecue, a border crossing, all of it exists provisionally, subject to revision by a sky that answers to no calendar. And yet residents develop, almost universally, a kind of dry fondness for it. Locals learn to read the wind the way sailors read tides, which direction signals a clear day tomorrow, which pattern means to stay indoors, which specific gust off the ice field means the glacier is breathing, their term for the way cold air rolls down off the ice in sudden, bone-deep drops. Children here are taught to walk leaning forward before they're taught much else, and on the rare still day, when the wind, for once, simply stops, the whole town seems to exhale at once, work pausing, neighbors gathering outside just to stand in silence, treating stillness itself as a kind of holiday. There is a gentler cousin to this extreme, too, the brief, glassy calm that sometimes settles over the steppe at dawn, before the day's wind has gathered itself, when the light lies flat and gold across the grass and every guanaco track shows crisp in the frost. Locals call these the quiet hours and treasure them precisely because they never last. Longtime residents describe a kind of second sense that develops over years spent under this wind, an ability to feel a change in pressure before it registers on any instrument, to know from a shift in pitch alone whether the coming gust is a nuisance or a genuine hazard. Newcomers are warned early, never trust a calm morning completely, and never leave a door unlatched, no matter how still the air seems when you step outside. Few regions this remote have left so large a footprint on the wider world's imagination. It was here, cataloguing the strange fossils and stranger wildlife of the Patagonian coast that a young naturalist aboard the Beagle began assembling ideas that would eventually reshape biology itself. Charles Darwin's own journals return again and again to this specific stretch of coastline, long before On the Origin of Species existed even as a draft. Decades later, Bruce Chatwin's travel classic In Patagonia would introduce a generation of outsiders to the region as a place of myth as much as geography, cementing Patagonia in the global imagination as shorthand for the edge of the known world. Mountaineering owes the region an outsized debt as well. The granite spires around what is now El Chaln drew some of the most storied climbers of the 20th century, testing techniques and equipment on faces so consistently battered by wind that a successful summit here carried, for decades, more prestige among climbers than taller peaks elsewhere with gentler weather. A regional outdoor clothing brand, founded by a climber who cut his teeth on these very mountains, would go on to become one of the most recognized names in adventure apparel worldwide, carrying the region's name and rugged reputation into ski lodges and city sidewalks on every continent. What does it mean for scientific history to have been written, in part, on a coastline this far from anywhere else considered significant? What does it say that mountains too difficult to fully conquer became more famous, not less, for their refusal to cooperate? Patagonia has never needed to be easy to matter to the rest of the world. It only needed to be uncompromising enough that the people who came here left changed, and said so loudly once they got home. Ideas outlast expeditions. Reputations outlast weather windows. Scientific interest in the region never really stopped after Darwin's visit. Paleontologists still comb the same coastal cliffs for fossils of ancient marine reptiles and early mammals, occasionally unearthing specimens significant enough to rewrite small corners of textbooks. While marine biologists return each season to track whale populations that were nearly wiped out by 19th century hunting fleets sailing from ports half a world away. The region's remoteness, once a hindrance to that research, is now precisely what makes it valuable. A living laboratory largely undisturbed by the pressures that complicate fieldwork elsewhere. There is one landmark that more than any other has come to stand for this entire region, Monte Fitzroy. The jagged granite spire that towers over El Chaln and appears, stylized, on the logo of that same globally recognized outdoor clothing brand, a shape now recognized on jacket tags in cities that have never seen snow. The mountain exists here rather than anywhere else because of a specific and violent geological accident. Molten rock intruded beneath older sedimentary layers millions of years ago, cooled into dense granite, and was later exposed as softer surrounding rock eroded away, leaving behind a needle of stone too hard and too steep for ice or wind to round off the way they have rounded every neighboring peak. Its local Tehuelche name translates roughly to smoking mountain, a reference to the plume of cloud that almost perpetually wreathes its summit, cloud caused not by fire, but by the mountain's own violent interaction with the wind screaming off the ice field beyond it. Its climbing history reads like a catalogue of near misses and hard-won firsts. Decades passed between its first ascent and its first winter ascent, largely because the weather windows calm enough to attempt the summit sometimes total only a handful of days across an entire year. Climbers have waited out 3-week storms in tents pinned to bare rock, only to summit in a single clear afternoon and descend before the next front rolled in. Locals regard Fitzroy with a pride too settled to need constant repeating. It isn't something residents point out to visitors so much as something visitors point at themselves, cameras raised, while locals simply glance up out of habit, checking, as they do every morning, whether the mountain has decided to hide behind cloud again, or for once, show its full face to the town built at its feet. Guides in town keep informal mental logs of clear summit days the way other professions keep sales figures. And a fully unobstructed sunrise on the peak, when its granite briefly burns pink and gold before fading back to grey, is treated as a small, shareable local event, texted between neighbours and posted online within minutes of happening. Straddling the Argentine-Chilean border sits the southern Patagonian icefield, the largest contiguous ice mass in the southern hemisphere outside Antarctica. A frozen expanse old enough that its deepest layers formed long before any human ever set foot on this continent. From this vast reserve, glaciers flow outward like slow rivers of compressed time, carving valleys, grinding boulders to flour fine silt, and feeding lakes the improbable milky turquoise color that silt produces when suspended in glacial meltwater. Chief among these is Perito Moreno Glacier, a wall of blue-white ice roughly as tall as a 60-story building, advancing across Lake Argentino at a pace unusual among the world's glaciers. Most retreat steadily, but Perito Moreno has for long stretches of recorded history maintained a rough equilibrium, advancing until it dams the lake entirely, then rupturing in a slow-motion collapse that can take hours to fully unfold. This rupture and rebuild cycle is not a warning sign here. It is simply the glacier's ordinary rhythm, a spectacle residents have watched repeat across generations, timing picnics and anniversaries around it the way other towns time festivals around a harvest. The ice itself functions as a record, compressed snow layered over millennia, trapping tiny pockets of ancient air, a physical archive of a climate history far older than any written record from this continent. Locals speak of the icefield less as scenery and more as a kind of geological relative, something enormous, ancient and indifferent, sitting at the edge of daily life the way a mountain range might sit at the edge of a childhood memory. Guides who have worked the glacier for decades describe an intimacy with it that borders on superstition. Certain sounds that mean stay back, certain color shifts in the ice that mean a carving is imminent, knowledge passed down not through manuals, but through years of simply standing close enough to listen. Families in El Calafate mark anniversaries and childhoods against the glacier's rhythm the way other communities mark them against a changing skyline. A first visit as a toddler, a school trip in adolescence, a proposal staged on the viewing platforms decades later. The ice, indifferent to any of it, keeps advancing and rupturing on its own ancient schedule, regardless of who happens to be watching. You give up convenience here. You give up the certainty that today's plans will survive today's weather. You give up proximity to family, to hospitals, to the small daily comforts that dense cities never make you notice you have. And yet, the people who come here rarely speak of hardship. They speak of clarity. Something slows down in a person who lives long enough beneath skies this wide. Patience stretches to match the distances. Attention sharpens toward things that dense, noisy places never require you to notice. A wind shift, a cloud gathering on a familiar peak, the particular silence of a still day. People who arrive expecting to merely endure Patagonia often find, instead, that they've been quietly recalibrated by it. The The tiny, self-selected population scattered across this enormous land, Welsh descendants and Argentine ranchers, mountain guides and glacier trackers, newcomers and fifth-generation locals, proved something simple and easy to forget elsewhere. Belonging was never really about ease. It was always about the effort a person is willing to make and the meaning that effort returns. And above the town that was built, almost on a whim, to point toward it, Fitzroy still stands wreathed in its own private cloud. Not a warning, not a barrier, simply a reminder of what this whole region represents to the outside world. Proof that difficulty and devotion can occupy the exact same mountain. Patagonia doesn't need to convince anyone to stay. Those who belong here already know it. The wind will keep moving across that steppe long after every visitor has gone home and forgotten the exact shape of the mountains. But the land remembers. It always has. And for those who chose it, that has always been enough.